Teacher Talking Sports, what it does, what it do, how we live in with week 2 of the NFL season ready to kick off tomorrow with Thursday Night Football. I'll be giving you my week 2 picks against the spread, something I'll be doing all season. Week 1 was a fairly successful one for me as I went 10 and 6 with my picks. Went with a bunch of road teams last weekend. Road teams were very successful. You'll notice with this week's picks, I definitely went with more road teams again. Not something I intentionally did. I just like the spread for a lot of those road teams. But we'll see by the end of Monday Night Football. There's 2 Monday Night Football games. How I did for week 2, hopefully just as well. But let's get into it. Starting with the Thursday night matchup, Eagles at home versus the Vikings, taking the Eagles -6.5. And by the way, all these spreads are via DraftKings Sportsbook as of Wednesday evening. The Vikings, I had seen them at 7.5 point underdogs, and I was ready to take them. That point difference, though, just made me flip my pick. Now, the Eagles will be without Kenneth Gainwell and James Bradbury, but the Eagles have a bevy of running backs who can do damage. We barely saw DeAndre Swift play. Rashad Penny wasn't even active. So I don't think that'll be a huge loss, Gainwell. I think the Eagles struggled a bit in week 1, but they rebound against a Vikings team that had a massively disappointing loss in week 1 of the Buccaneers. This was a tough one. Bills -8.5 versus Raiders. Now, it seems like Josh Allen has maybe 2 games this season where he struggles like he did in week 1 against the Jets, 4 turnovers, but he always seems to rebound fairly nicely. Was a tough pick for me, though, because as I've mentioned in previous videos, I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo just has an awesome winning percentage as a starter. Raiders beat the Broncos in week 1. But I think the Bills rebound nicely and win by, let's say, 10 at least. Chiefs -3.5 at the Jaguars. We know Chris Jones will likely play in this game. Hopefully the Chiefs have Travis Kelce back as well. We saw the struggles of the Chiefs wide receivers in week 1. They also rebound with a win on the road against a very good Jacksonville Jaguar teams. Lions -5.5 versus the Seahawks. Let's be honest. I mean, if you go back to, let's say, the last 5 or 6 games of last year, for Geno Smith, he really hasn't performed well, including the first game of this season. So right now, I just have a lot more faith in Jared Goff. And if you look at his home away splits last season, Jared Goff was incredible at home, fairly average on the road. This is a home game for the Lions, so I think they win by at least a touchdown. Chargers -3 at the Titans. I've said that I think I'm actually higher on the Titans than a lot of people. They played a close game against the Saints in week 1. I just think the Chargers offense is a lot better than the Titans. And they're able to put up at least 24 points. Meanwhile, Titans, I expect to get less than 20, even against a average at best Chargers defense. Ravens +3.5 at the Bengals. Now, don't get me wrong. I do not expect a repeat week 1 performance for Cincinnati, as Joe Burrow totaled, 82 passing yards. I remember he was pretty much out all of the offseason. So another week in the books. He should be a lot more ready to play. But Ravens, of course, easily took care of the Texans. I expect Lamar Jackson to have a much better game than he did in week 1. So, not sure who wins this game. Toss up, but the Ravens covered at 3.5 point spread. This was probably the hardest game for me to decide. Bears at Buccaneers. I've always been low on the Bears. Predicted them to finish last in the division. Of course, the Packers easily took care of them in week 1, while the Buccaneers had a surprising victory over the Vikings. But if we're honest, the Vikings probably outplayed the Buccaneers. Just some really costly fumbles, turnovers by Kirk Cousins allowed the Buccaneers to come back and win the game. Um, Buccaneers might win this game, but and what I expect to be a low scoring one, but the Bears, it's close enough where they'll cover the 2.5 point spread. Packers fared by a point at the Falcons. I almost picked the Packers to make the postseason prior to the season. They were one of my toughest omissions in the NFC. Meanwhile, yes, the Falcons won in week 1, but Bryce Young really struggled, and the Falcons' opponent. And Desmond Ridder, man, just you look at the numbers by the Falcons. Most of his completions went to running backs. Drake London didn't even have a catch. Yes, their running game looks to be superb with the 1-2 punch of Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. But right now, I just have a lot more faith in Jordan Love and the Packers than Desmond Ridder and the Falcons. So those are half of the week 2 games. Take a look at the other half. Colts fared by a point at the Texans. Prior to this season, I said these are two teams I expected to maybe be at the bottom of the AFC. Right now, I just believe a little bit more in Anthony Richardson than CJ Stroud, and I think the Colts have a little bit better defense than the Texans. So I'm going with the Colts in what is nearly a pick'em. Rams at home, underdog by 7.5 to the 49ers. 49ers, of course, looked incredible in week 1, embarrassing the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Matthew Stafford truly looked healthy. No Cooper Kupp, no problem for the Rams, even with not many names on their defense other than, of course, Aaron Donald. They played very well, making life miserable for Kenny Pickett. So while I'm not necessarily picking the Rams to win, I don't think they're going to lose by more than 7 points. Giants minus 5.5 at the Cardinals. I'm a Giants fan, but this isn't a homer pick. I picked the Cowboys to cover the spread in week 1 and basically knew that was a win for me in the second quarter. But as a Giants fan, man, if we don't beat the Cardinals on Sunday, I'm basically waving the white flag and the season's over. Cowboys minus 9.5 at the Jets. I did my Survivor Pool video on Tuesday, and I picked the Cowboys for my Week 2 Survivor pick. Yes, the Jets do have a great defense, but so do the Cowboys. I don't trust Zach Wilson against the Cowboys pass rush at all, and I think the Cowboys win maybe like 23-10 final score, something along those lines. This game was another hard one. I'd say probably this game and the Buccaneers games are the two hardest for me to pick. I'm going to take the Commanders plus 3.5 at the Broncos. Now, if you ask me who I think wins the game, I say Broncos in a very low-scoring affair, somewhere along the lines of like 16-13, but of course, a 3-point victory by the Broncos would have the Commanders covering the spread. Dolphins minus 3 at the Patriots. Man, the Dolphins offense just clicking on all cylinders in that week 1 game against the Chargers. Patriots do have a better defense than the Chargers, but I think the Dolphins score enough points. Meanwhile, the Patriots, I could see struggling to reach 20 points in this game. And then we got 2 Monday night games, and I'm taking the 2 road favorites. Saints minus 3 at the Panthers. Bryce Young just didn't look strong in week 1 performance. Just trust Derek Carr a lot more, the veteran. While the Saints didn't necessarily blow the doors open with their offense, their defense looked very good against the Titans. I expect them to win by 6, 7, somewhere around those lines. And I picked the Browns before the season to reach the playoffs, and I actually picked the Steelers to finish last in what I said might be the best division in football, the AFC North. Browns just absolutely made Joe Burrow's life a nightmare in week 1. Easily took care of business against Cincinnati. Of course, the Steelers' offense struggled quite a bit in week 1, so the Browns definitely expect their defense to come up big again. Myles Garrett and that pass rush, Darius Smith, coming up big. Denzel Ward maybe picks off a Kenny Pickett pass. And Deshaun Watson does a little bit better than he did in week 1. Browns, I expect to win by, I'll say, at least a touchdown. So those are my week 2 picks against the spread. Again, went heavy with road teams for the second straight week. And again, went 10-6 in week 1. So let's hope I'm not successful. Again, I'll be doing this all season. I'll be keeping track of my record as the year goes on. So let's hope I stay well above that 500 mark. If not, you guys can laugh at how bad I am picking. Let's hope it never gets to that point, though. Anyhow, don't forget to subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. Like the video, share the video, hit the bell for notifications. I'm out.